Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. I am fully aware that the reason many people come to this podcast is to change their life, change themselves in some way. And I really hope one of the 1,100 episodes we've had previously has helped you to do that. It is my primary goal with this podcast is to help you to change your reality or your situation, whatever it is, because I was able to do it in the past. And I've also found in teaching these lessons that I can also change myself as well. I want to give you the power to change yourself, and that is the focus of this episode. If you followed me so far at this point, you probably understand how life principles of fear and self-doubt and worry, envy and anger are holding you back. That has been my goal with several episodes. And because you've been doing exercises that I've shared with you, you're beginning to master them. You're beginning to enter situations that were once fearful for you in the past. If you've done my meditations or used my affirmations, this is starting to change your life slowly. You may still have hesitated or gotten angry and experienced anxiety, but they don't have the same hold on you that they have in the past. You may still have encountered a certain amount of resistance and discomfort, but given that learned some new techniques and practices, you're becoming rather skillful at getting into a relaxed state to handle the discomfort and move past it. You know that when you have anxiety or experience frustration, you can ride it through. And you have begun to do this rather than reacting to it. You're changing your reactions, understanding that everything is working to your advantage. You're able to see how anxiety developed and look at it as the neutral observer. And it probably didn't last as long as it has in the past if you've followed my teachings. You have a better understanding of what caused issues, and you understand the sequence of the chain reaction to slow things down and not react. You've also developed some amount of skill by using the techniques that you've learned thus far to replace old unworkable beliefs and behaviors with new life principles aligned to what you want. If this is the first time that you're listening or watching one of my videos, then I'm so excited. And hopefully you can start here, but I've attempted through many different episodes and meditations and interviews to give you these techniques and tools to help you to change. You see that your life is beginning to change. That is my goal. You're beginning to tap into your capacity for creativity, spontaneity, and aliveness. You understand the power of a vision in that it pulls you forward and at the same time guides you to begin living in the now as if you've already achieved it, so that you become the person that you were meant to be, that you wish to be. You might have a new direction or a new vision for yourself. I know if you've been listening to me, you're generating ideas and possibilities by setting goals and by creating structures of support around your vision. You are developing plans that are quite independent of the old concepts that you once had of yourself. You're beginning to function in the world beyond your previous limited perspective of what might be possible. You have embraced the idea that all things are possible. In this episode, we're going to talk about the power to change, transforming who you once were by letting go of the past and creating a greater sense of centeredness and self-acceptance. In a larger sense, the power to change is not about becoming another person, but becoming the person you really are, to become who you were intended to be. But maybe you lost touch with it in the process of socialization or some event in the past. Some people hold on to past events, some of which may have been painful and even traumatic. These events created fears that keep them from moving forward in their lives. Some people have created structures in their lives that have the benefit or the payoff of not having to be responsible for doing the things necessary to move forward. They may feel that they can't move forward because they don't want to let someone off the hook, or they hold on to resentment Oftentimes it's one or both of the parents. They don't want their lives to move forward because if things really work out, that means they can't keep blaming the people they have been blaming throughout their lives. There can be a lot of anger stemming from events of the past that some people are holding on to. Anger gives people, in a sense, a feeling of power. Their anger towards another person gives them a reason for being. Anger can feel motivating. It makes you feel powerful and in control. And at the same time, it gives you a certain amount of energy, which you may not usually have. I know people that run on the energy of anger. It gives them a boost of energy like a cup of coffee in the morning. However, anger is very self-destructive because it forces you to focus on the self and its security. It can make you aggressively self-protective, and it can move you into that realm of service to self. Anger is caustic and will consume you. It forces you to focus on the past all the time. Some people are still angry with their parents and others, and yet they are well into their 40s. I know people who are angry with their parents and their parents have passed on, but they still hold on to the anger. I know people that are angry with siblings and friends and teachers, and they never let it go. So why are people angry? And why do people stay angry? Why don't people let things go and move on? To understand this, we have to look at the payoff. The payoff is the reward for being and staying angry. The anger keeps the person from having to do anything. It keeps them from taking action and responsibility. They can keep blaming someone else for their failures, for their mistakes. It allows them to make excuses. Do you know what I could have been? Anger also reinforces a dynamic of approval-seeking behaviors from the past, such as, will my mother approve of the person that I'm dating? Will my father approve of the job I took? Will my parents approve of my grades? This is an old kind of anger, stemming from getting the parents' approval in childhood. It keeps the person bound up in the past. If you stay focused on what others will approve of, you can't tap the power of being responsible required for change. Sometimes it's not so much getting parents' approval as much as it is not wanting to move into adulthood and being responsible. If we move into adulthood and become responsible, we cannot keep blaming things on one or both of our parents nor anyone else. If you see some of these behaviors in yourself, do not be too concerned. They are in all of us to a certain degree. It's part of being human. It's only when the anger and resentment of the past becomes twisted in behaviors, such as approval seeking or hesitating, and keeps you from moving forward that it becomes a problem. You can change your thoughts in this regard. You can change what you believe a parent might want or approve of. And for that matter, you can change any obsession with seeking the approval of others by learning to look inside yourself for the approval. You only need your own permission. By giving yourself permission to seek what you want and become who you are, you liberate yourself and the self. The person can begin the process of change and work towards the vision only if he or she lets go of the past. The process of change requires dropping the past, especially when it entails anger and resentment. Dropping these emotions can be difficult because of the energy they give you. Anger and resentment can make you feel alive, self-righteous because you were a victim. I know that there are people in the chat group right now, someone in particular that I love, that I care about, who was given a tough hand and encountered incredibly terrible environmental problems, causing them to be sick. And they are angry about this, and they are sick themselves. And they are constantly looking at photos about it and talking about it, and that's all they talk about. And they have not let go of the past. This anger drives them. How do you drop the past, especially when it entails anger and resentment? The best way is through forgiveness. But people are reluctant to forgive. There's confusion about forgiveness. For some people, it has religious connotations. For others, they hear should forgive. Their immediate thought is, why should I forgive? They did something bad to me. To them. The idea of forgiveness implies that the perpetrator did no wrong, or somehow they, the victims, are to blame. This is not what we mean by forgiveness. It is not making the other person's actions okay, and it does not make the victim responsible for what happened. In one important way, forgiveness is an act of self-care. It is self-centered in that it changes you. It is positive, a self-centering. It allows you to let go of resentment, so the anger no longer consumes you. It doesn't clear the other person of any wrongdoing. Instead, forgiveness allows you to see how your thoughts about the past keep you stuck in the past, and how these thoughts keep feeding your anger. Forgiveness is a freeing act, not for the other person, but for you. It frees you from the prison of your resentment. This may cause you to ask, how can I free myself of past resentments and anger? Is it by forgiving the other person? The answer is yes. But there is more to it than that. To understand forgiveness and to truly let go and be free, try to see how your thoughts of anger, revenge, and resentment came about. To free yourself from the anger, you need to become aware of what triggers these old thoughts of anger. To become aware, you must be present. This means to center and be in the now. To center, you must be present enough to look inside for your own stability. Stop going outside of yourself, such as seeking the approval of others. And stop the old movies of what happened in the past from randomly replaying in your head. By being present and centered, you are able to observe exactly what happens when these thoughts begin coming up in your mind. What triggers the thought, and how does this trigger your feelings? Do you believe someone is going to do something to you? Does this trigger the past in some way? What are the images that come up? Get these experiences down in your journal if you can. Take a minute to think about the last time you got angry. Do you recall feeling the surge of power and energy, and how alive the anger made you feel? Sometimes your body becomes addicted to this. This surge in power is the adrenaline running through your body. While it makes you feel strong, it lowers your self-esteem, raises your blood pressure, and makes you sick. Unfortunately for you, it does nothing to the other person. In some ways, forgiveness is the opposite of anger. It definitely has the opposite effect on your mental state and physical well-being. You may have been angry for so long that anger and resentment push back against forgiveness. Why should I let him off the hook? Why should I forgive her after all the things she did to me? How can I just allow them to get away with it after what they did to me? People say that they are willing to forgive for the most part, but there is usually someone they have a difficult time forgiving. The concept of being forgiving, the willingness to forgive this other person, your mother or uncle or someone else, even though they don't feel forgiveness in your heart, is the ultimate form of releasing the past. Of course, you may find it difficult to forgive someone when you don't feel like it. Nevertheless, and this is important, the power in forgiveness comes from compassion. It is being forgiving that releases the positive energy of compassion. Not only compassion toward the other person, but compassion toward yourself and what was done to you. You can forgive the other person, let him off the hook, and at the same time let yourself off the hook by forgiving yourself for the things you regret doing. And once you've done this, you can begin to function in the world living from the concept of forgiveness and not on the basis of your reactions and feelings. The concept of revision is also very powerful. If you're going back and remembering the event differently, you have nothing to be angry about. If you let this enter into your consciousness, where you have a belief that the events that transpired happened differently, suddenly you're not reacting and you're not remembering in the same way, and those things don't create anger, and you end up in a timeline where those things never happened. Forgiveness can be transformational. There is power in letting people off the hook through forgiveness. Forgiveness is not necessarily a verbal act. We are referring to forgiveness as a form of commitment. The power of forgiveness comes your commitment to being forgiving toward others. It's living from the realm of forgiveness. It is living from the stand of being compassionate towards others. It's asserting who you are going to be and how you're going to act and then functioning in the world in terms of this concept, not simply waiting for the feelings to come around. Forgiveness is powerful. It is transformational. It places you in control of who you are and who you decide to be, because it is you doing the forgiving. You're not waiting for someone to accept it. It is you who is doing it. You are not doing it for the other person, per se. You are doing it for yourself, and that's all that matters. By practicing forgiveness and compassion, you're no longer allowing anger to control or define you. Instead of the negative feelings and energy that result from the anger and resentment, often uncontrollably, you create a new direction for the misguided energy, and you choose to be a certain way. You no longer react, nor do you carry around the burden of all the things done to you. Instead, you live in a more positive, self-directed way, radiating compassion and understanding, living from the vision of forgiveness. This bears repeating. You are stating who you are going to be and how you're going to act, and then functioning in the world in terms of the concept of being forgiving. You are not waiting for the feelings to come around. This creates a new way of being in the world, even though some of the old feelings may continue. The concept is that you state how you're going to be, and this then becomes the governing principle of how you function in the world. This becomes a very liberating life principle. It is liberating because you are no longer run by your fears. You're no longer run by your resentments. You're no longer run by your anger. Instead, you are run by a larger vision of yourself, a kinder, gentler, more loving, more forgiving person than you were in the past. The question that often comes up is whether you actually have to go to the person who made you so angry and say, "This is how I felt all my life. This is what you have done to me. This is how you've hurt me, and it really bothers me." Or you may ask, is it more of a mental process where you go through the act of forgiveness in your mind? In other words, is it enough for the person harboring resentment to decide, yes, I finally do forgive this person. I may be angry, but I do forgive them, and let this person off the hook? We discussed this before. Sometimes going to the other person helps, but you have to watch out for your expectations. If you are expecting an apology or a confession or an acknowledgement or even remorse from the other person, you may be setting yourself up. They may deny what happened or say it's your problem, which may cause even more anger. But it doesn't matter if you go to the other person or not. The point is, and one that you must understand, you can choose to be okay in the world now. And you do not need anyone to approve it or validate it, nor do you need anyone's apology. It may help you to clarify in your own mind what happened and how you felt, as well as how this has kept you from doing what you want and from going forward in the world and from becoming who you wish to be. And once you have done that, you then forgive the other person for whatever you believe that person has done to you and go forward doing what you want, becoming who you were designed to be. The critical thing is to get your feelings out, make the forgiving statement, and then live out that forgiveness. You do not have to go to the other person to accomplish this. You can do it in a role play with someone you know and trust, or with a professional. You can do it by writing it out, releasing the past and relinquishing the anger and resentment, contemplating your forgiveness as a part of your vision from which to live your life going forward. If you decide to talk to the other person, consider making a phone call. The call should be simple. For whatever happened, I forgive you, and this is how I'm going to take our lives forward in the future. You may feel compelled to tell the other person how angry you are, but don't. Keep the call cool. If you get a negative response, that's okay. Release it and forgive. Keep the compassion and the softness of your decision by not reacting. From the standpoint of change, one of the most critical things to do is to make the mental shift in how you relate to people from the past, as well as how you relate to yourself. A major mental shift is going from harboring anger and resentment to living from the stand of forgiveness. This shift is a mental exercise of letting go of the past, releasing it, so you can live in the reality of the now. To achieve the change you want and truly reinvent yourself in how you relate to others, ask the question, how can I function in the world in terms of being forgiving? In other words, how are you going to live from the stand of forgiveness? To live from the stand of forgiveness, you no longer hold a resentment toward that person or even corporation or government. You're not going to avoid the person. You're going to relate to the person as if everything has been cleared up. This means operating in the world quite independently of what the other person may still be feeling. It's important to recognize and to understand at a deep level that this is not about avoiding or holding the anger and resentment in, but instead releasing it and functioning in the world in a new way. Functioning in the world by deciding how you are going to be in the world, how you are going to live in the world, how you're going to be compassionate towards others, no matter how others treat you. It means, in effect, living in the here and now. It means letting go of notions from the past, letting go of blaming others from childhood, and getting past the notion that you weren't loved, were neglected, or were different, or any concepts about yourself that you carry around which limit your capacity to enter into the next moment as freely as possible. Once you release these burdens of the past, you are in a way free, mentally, physically, and spiritually. You are free to enter the next moment, to be who you wish to be. People can be free unless they give up the idea that they deserve to have their day in court and confront the other person. They use the notion of forgiveness and say, I forgive you, but in reality, they don't really forgive the person. They are using the event to confront and vent their pent-up anger. Other times, they want the person to admit their wrongs and express regret. Neither one of these is healthy. Moreover, neither achieves the true goal of forgiveness. Remember, the idea is not that you need vindication, nor an apology from the other person or group. If you feel you need this, you are still holding on to a desire for approval from the other person. You are still on the hook. The power of forgiveness is in the decision to be forgiving. When you decide to be forgiving, you relinquish the past anger and the pain with compassion. This is about what you can do and what is yours to control so that you can be free and feel good. Remember, you do not need the other person's confession, apology, or vindication to make you whole, complete, or perfect. This notion that you need to confront the other person for these things keeps you locked into victimhood and the past. Forgiveness is about changing the concept you have about yourself in terms of how you can be in the world. The concept of how you can be in the world is really what is important and what this discussion is all about. It is one of the central points of this episode. If you can let go of the past and the pain and hurt and accept yourself, you can get in touch with your higher self, the kingdom of heaven within, your spiritual center, and from which you can begin to create your reality and your life. This is going beyond letting go of the past. It means you are opening a space inside yourself to allow in something new, to allow the spiritual side of you to grow. This is the positive power of developing the self through your vision of what you want, living from the stand of forgiveness, creating who you can become. Past events may have been painful. There is no denying that. However, the interpretation of these experiences and replaying them repeatedly in your mind creates fears, doubts, worries, and stress that keep you from going forward. You may have become stuck because of your preferred way of interpreting what happened. I have focused a lot on anger in this episode as a source of pain, as well as resentment, which keeps the anger alive, causing anxiety. Another source of pain that creates anxiety comes from comparison, which fosters both envy and jealousy. Like anger and resentment, envy and jealousy keep anxiety alive. Envy begins when we compare what someone else has with what we have. It can escalate to resentment and some form of ill will toward another. Envy causes us to think, why can't I be like you? When we are envious, we feel that having what someone else has will make us better or happier in some form, and that not having what they have diminishes us in some way. It can be anything: looks, money, position, grades, clothes, relationships, skills, intelligence, attention, children, athletics, and even someone else's lawn. Envy's cousin, jealousy, typically carries the weight of mistrust. We believe in some way that the thing we want and do not have rightly belongs to us. Jealousy is often associated with another person. Resentment is usually a companion emotion to both envy and jealousy. It causes us to think, why don't I have this thing and why do they? Harbored feelings of envy and jealousy can cause resentment, which will gnaw away at us and can be a springboard to anger and hatred and eventual depression. You will come across people who handle situations easily, situations that make you panicky. You may be envious that they can handle these situations better than you can. Being envious makes matters worse. It can cause you to feel more anxious and out of control. The following examples are subtle but keep anxiety alive and make it pervasive. Some people who are anxious about driving may envy people who aren't afraid to drive. They cannot understand why other people are unafraid to get behind the wheel of a car. Some people are constantly worried about money. People who are worried about money can't understand why other people spend freely and why they aren't worried about having enough for the future. For people who have been laid off or fired, the event was so traumatic that when they do get a job, they are afraid to express their ideas, and they envy people who freely express their opinions and ideas. I know this because that used to be me. Take the young woman whose boyfriend dumped her. The rejection causes her to feel she is not good enough for anyone. She envies the friend who doesn't suffer the pain of being rejected and who isn't the least bit concerned about future relationships. This person cannot fathom how the friend is so cavalier about a relationship ending and who states that's their problem, their loss. There are plenty of fish in the sea. The experience of envy can manifest itself as, why can't I be like other people? Or, why do I experience this pain? Why am I different? This kind of thinking can make you feel alone and incapacitated. It can make you feel anxious and cause stress and look for the wrong answers. Another way to look at envy, if you're prone to become envious, is to recognize it as a source for potential change, a breakthrough. Instead of being envious, ask yourself this question: why doesn't this bother them? When you see a breakthrough like this, you'll discover people are interpreting the event through a different lens or explanatory style. This causes them to experience things differently. This does not make them better than you. They just have an explanatory style that filters their interpretation of what happened in a way that doesn't overwhelm them, or in a manner that they don't take something personally or allows them to do something about it. You have to realize that you are not unlike other people. We are all alike. We tend to think that we are the only ones in the world who have this problem, or any problem for that matter, when in reality there are many people who experience fear, anxiety, envy, anger, and resentment. We are all inclined to think we are the only ones in the world who has this problem or will never get out or over our condition. If you begin to do this, snap out of it by getting back into the present, because you are about to spiral downward. As human beings, while we're not unlike other people, we are still unique. We are like everyone else, yet at the same time different. This is something we all need to recognize. This is part spiritual and part physical. On the physical plane, we are all human beings. And being human, we have experienced different events, some more upsetting than others. We are all operating out of life principles based on how we were raised, trying to live up to someone else's expectations or beliefs. Some of these events made us reluctant to be as powerful and creative and spontaneous in the world as we could and can be. We have scripts and filters that cause us to interpret things differently. This is the human condition. This is life. It's totally normal. We've all been hurt in one way or another. People have told us things about ourselves that aren't true. We've been taught things about the world that aren't true. The things we learned that are not true may have turned into beliefs. These faulty beliefs turned into operating principles that function below our conscious level of awareness. Do you not see that all the time in social media, where people are making patently false claims, but then clearly think that it's true? Many of our life principles are universal. What society deems normal and expected. These normal and expected life principles include the need to look good, the need to be liked, the need to be a certain way to get along, to go along. This can be a trap. They often keep us locked into a standard that forces us to conform to what everyone else believes, but usually are not doing. They can cause us to feel guilty if we do better than the next person. Your success makes you guilty. The norms can pressure us to be a certain way and do things we don't agree with or like to do. As you begin taking action toward your vision, these norms can cause a great deal of stress as you try to break out of the conformity as a result of your vision and your new behaviors. You may fear being chastised and censored, which causes more stress. Face whatever it is and take action. The critical thing in addressing the fear, doubt, envy, stress, and anything else that is blocking you is to take action. Whatever is causing you to hesitate and whatever is blocking you, whatever is causing doubt, is for the most part in your head. Anything that is keeping you in place in your present reality is mostly in your mind. And taking action is how you get around and over the issues of fear, self-doubt, and worry. What feeds the anxiety is not taking action toward your vision. When you come face to face with fear, doubt, or worry, this is not the time to procrastinate. This is not the time to be concerned whether things are perfect or not, or whether this is the time to act. You must commit to your objective and take action. You have to move past this trap of waiting, hesitating, past this vicious circle of protecting yourself. Take the actions necessary. Cross that bridge. Board the flight. Take that college course. Write that book. Take the action in spite of the fears of being criticized or rejected. Whatever the fear is, take action in the face of it. Where in the past you had a panic attack or anxiety, the critical thing is to act now. I cannot emphasize this enough. You must take action right now, soon as this episode's over. It is critical that once you realize that you have this fear or anxiety, any fear, establish what created it. Then be willing to ask yourself, what must I do to solve this? How do I get past this? How do I get past the past? You must get to the point where you say to yourself, I must make a commitment to get over this. The best way to do this is take action in line with the vision that you created of what you want. Remember, this is your life. And in the end, no one is going to care whether you abided by what society said you should be or do. At this point, the question to ask yourself is, how can I get on the path to what I want? The sooner you say to yourself, I am determined, I will do this no matter how long it takes me, and I will work on this until it is conquered, will determine how fast you can get on the path to your created reality. It is only by taking action in line with your vision that determines your ability to master fear or any other emotion that once held you back. Reinvention begins with changing your internal dialogue from I can't do it to I can do it. But the most powerful is I will do it. It's not that you don't have the capacity to do it, because you do. It's the fact that you do it. It's the fact that you take action. The critical question to ask yourself is, am I willing to do it? Without the commitment and the willingness, then you don't have the capacity to do it. You need the power and determination to say, I can do this. I can get past whatever is holding me back, and I will do this. Whatever this is, you have to commit by saying, I can achieve my vision, and I will. I can be a successful writer, and I will. I can land a good job. I will. I can become fit and healthy, and I will. I can create my reality, and I will. Yes, it may take a while. However, the sooner you rephrase your internal dialogue and the sooner you commit to the change by taking action, the faster your life begins to improve. What becomes absolutely critical is the language you begin to use in terms of how to conceptualize entering the world in the next moment. When you enter the next moment, you must change from the old to the new, from the negative to the positive. The next thought becomes, I can make a difference. I can accomplish this. I am not the person I once was. By saying to yourself in the next moment, I am not the child who was abused. I'm not the handicapped, phobic person I always have been. I'm a human being who can change my life. I have the power to change my life. You are creating a frame of reference for your thinking. This in turn begins a thinking pattern that creates and supports the new version of you. The fact is, who you are up to this point in life may not really be you. Consider this point. You may not be who you think you are. You created an image of yourself, who you thought you were, long ago. And thus you have created this reality that you're in now. You acquired certain thoughts and beliefs about yourself that formed an image, a concept of yourself. As time has passed, You came to believe you were the image of the person who you created. That's how reality creation works. Since you created your image as a child of 8 years old, the concept of who you think you are now, you can invent another image now. Whatever age you are, I don't care if you're 90 years old, if you realize you invented the image of who you are now when you were 8, then the question is, why shouldn't you invent a new image of the person you wish to be? An image based on your vision instead of carrying the old one around. Now you may think that others have asked, you're saying I can make up who I am? The answer is yes. You can create who you wish to be. If you made up the version of who you are now 30 years ago, as a child, why can't you make up a new version of you today? Who says you can't? You can reinvent a new version of yourself in the next moment right now. This is the point of your vision. You can change who you are based on your vision. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "The only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be." This point of changing your inner dialogue and your beliefs to create and support a new concept of yourself is important to understand. It directly leads to change, transformation, and reinvention of yourself. Since you created your current image and you are now acting in accord with this image, you can change this concept of who you are into something new, based on what you want. Remember, the image we now have of ourselves, we not only made up, but we made it up early in life based on limiting notions of what we could do, what we knew, and how we could be in the world. We used notions we learned from others who did not know anything about us or our talents. This new reality of who you wish to be is totally up to you. You create your reality to reflect how you want to operate in the world. Each moment is a new moment, an opportunity to decide who you wish to be. The world is constantly changing. This means you can change too. The point is not to wait for the world to change. You can change in the next moment. You can change because you are not the person you were a minute ago. The point about this concept of changing who you are is that it is under your control. You can become, if you grasp this powerful concept, who and what you decide to become. I want to give some techniques that you can put into practice to change your beliefs and life principles, to create the concept of who you wish to be, aligned to your vision of your new reality. First of all, describe the person you want to be. Describe the person you want to be in as much detail as you can. This means having a vision and a blueprint of the characteristics and attributes you wish to exemplify and live from. It sometimes helps to start with who you don't want to be, or what attributes you no longer wish to have. If you start with what you don't want, you can turn the attribute into its opposite. What do you want? It is important to know what you don't want to have, to wait for these attributes and qualities to develop. You can act as if and be that person now. Secondly, be that person now. Take action in the present by acting as if you are the person you described. Act as if you already have the qualities you described. Give up the past and the people who hold you in place. Give up the rambling internet conversations on social media that reinforce your old self. Give up the need for approval from others. Once you define who you wish to be, you then use the visualization techniques to see yourself with the qualities and attributes of the person you wish to become in the present. Next, use visualization. I've discussed visualization on several episodes. Visualization is a strong technique. Beyond what we talk about through meditation, it's used by actors, performers, athletes, and business professionals. Visualization means seeing yourself in your mind's eye in the situation, performing or acting in the manner you want to see on the outside in reality. You can practice perfect performance by visualizing yourself going through the routine flawlessly. In doing this, your mind will deliver. By closing your eyes and getting into a relaxed state, see yourself doing the things you need to do that are in line with your vision. Visualize yourself being that person that you want to become. See yourself with the attributes you desire and those needed to achieve the vision. Take 5 or 10 minutes a day, several times a day for the next several weeks to use visualization. Fourth, use affirmation. The idea of using affirmations is a strong technique that leverages the prior 3 techniques. Write out the attributes you desire using the 3 P's: positive, present tense, and personal, every day in a notebook. And after you do, read them out loud. This powerful technique will act as a strong centering mantra. All that is required is a pen, paper, and discipline to do this every day. 5. Bombard your mind with the positive. You can make significant progress by bombarding your mind with videos, courses, and books aligned with what you want and who you wish to become. From this moment on, only read books and articles and only watch videos that are inspirational, motivational, and educational, consistent with your vision. Listen to audiobooks aligned with your vision while exercising and traveling to and from work. This will accelerate the development of the skills and qualities you desire. When you combine all the techniques, you create a powerful magnetic force that attracts circumstances, people, events, and things that you want in your life. As you take action, you will begin to get new information as to what works and what needs adjusting. The action provides feedback. You are beginning to change for the better. You are more positive, creative, and inspiring. I cannot tell you how much this one idea has changed the lives of people I know in terms of becoming who they are capable of being. More importantly, they felt better about themselves. They feel that they are in control of who they are and what they can become. This process gives you a sense of purpose and direction toward becoming what you want and can be. This motivating force taps into your strengths and all the positive attributes you have to offer the world. In most cases, when I'm talking to people, it is fear that holds them back. Fear tends to creep into our minds in different forms. To a certain extent, we are all afraid. It's when we make fear the main reason for doing or not doing something, to the point we habitually retreat, that it wrecks our lives. In some people, fears of disaster and impending doom are magnified and can cause depression. The more subtle fears in all of us cause us to hesitate and stop us. Fear of failure, rejection, being laughed at, criticism, not being loved and accepted are all there under the surface, waiting to make their entrance in our thoughts. What if I fail? What if they don't like me? This gets into the what ifs or shoulds. You may recognize it as would've, could've, should've. These forms of inner dialogue are destructive. The point is to reverse the destructive inner dialogue from you may fail to what if you succeed. If you hear the voice in your head saying you may fail, counter it by saying to yourself, but what if I succeed? If you still find yourself repeating, but what if I fail? Say to yourself, so what if I fail? Then you just get past the thought of failure by moving to the next step, which is taking the action in front of you. And if you do fail, so what? You choose not to see it as a failure, but only as a breakdown and possibly as a source of a breakthrough based on what you learn and are able to do with the experience. Look at failing as information, not an indictment of yourself. Look at failing as something that has no meaning other than whatever you didn't work. It means nothing beyond that. If you swing and miss, this is not a failure. The missed swing is just a missed swing. You make an adjustment and swing at the next ball. You do not need to add a story about how and why you swung and missed. There's no need to interpret it. Don't give it any more meaning than what it is, a missed swing. If you interpret the misstep more by giving it additional meaning, you can make it pervasive to the point where it consumes you and causes you to become stuck. When you become stuck, you feel you cannot take the next action. The key is to view an event that doesn't work the way you envisioned it or wanted it to go as simply a missed swing. All you have to do is learn from it and move on to the next action. Take another swing. Begin to see that each breakdown is also a breakthrough. It really is about seeing the opportunity in the failure. If you used a certain approach, process, or method and failed, then change the approach, the process, or the method. Use failure as a feedback mechanism to change something. You reframe it by saying, that didn't work. I have discovered another way in which this won't work. You reframe the experience and see it through the lens of your choosing in terms of what you want. Of course, there's the classic example. Thomas Edison reframed his failed efforts. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. I'm going to give you something right now. I'm going to give you permission to be a success. You have permission. I don't need to give it to you. You have to give it to yourself. Another issue that may come up is the idea of not deserving something good, not deserving success. That's what I struggled with. The idea that you feel you don't deserve success makes it difficult to accept it or even see it. Many people are not able to accept success. They stop short of it. They have a nagging voice that says, "Who do you think you are? Do you really think you can do this?" In a sense, they are afraid to move on and succeed. Some people are afraid of becoming a success because of what it may require of themselves. But what stops most people is what other people may think. Realize that you don't need anyone's permission to do something new and different, or become something new and different for that matter. You don't need my permission, nor do you need anyone else's permission to be a success. Not pursuing something you want because of the concern for what others might say is just some baggage from the past. That is the part of the past that you must relinquish. You do not need permission from anyone to become the person you're capable of being. Accept the notion of your right to be successful. Realize that success is something you define, not someone else. Define what success means to you. Is it a positive result? Is it measurable? Is it a goal? Whatever it is will require change. What comes next is taking the necessary actions. Do the things you need to do. Nothing harmful is going to happen when you pursue what you want. In fact, when you get out there and make something happen, you realize that you are in this realm of reality creation where you are really dealing with uncertainty and unpredictability. It may feel like you're out of control. That's because you're dealing with something you've never dealt with before. Much of the fear that you anticipate, the fear that you will be punished or criticized for succeeding or not, will be in your mind, where it has been all along, because the fear is not real. Know that it will pass, it will fade, it will disappear. You will discover, and this is the breakthrough, that the fear, the inner dialogue, and the anxiety were never really there. They were inventions of your imagination, bits of memory from the past. These were and are illusions. When you understand that the voices in your head that hold you back, and they hold all of us back from trying, are only illusions, you have one of the keys to living successfully and creating the reality that you want. So then, your fear of failure, fear of success, and all the other fears are simply a repetition of past distressing experiences or concepts. And when you enter the world with courage and without holding back, you begin to discover that much of what you feared, you made up. You may have had a traumatic or distressing experience or a panic attack. But all the interpretation and meaning you attach to the experience about being less than or not worthy or inferior was an exaggerated response that you invented. It wasn't reality or true. Actually, once you enter into this new realm of creativity and being in the world, you will realize that the things you feared would occur, in fact, do not occur. When you learn that nothing occurs, you also learn that nothing happens to you. You find out that you are okay. All the fear and worry and self-doubt was in your head. It felt real at the time, but you get past the feeling and you begin to find that the world is a much more magnificent, exciting, and challenging place than you ever imagined it could be. So make a list in your notebook of old attitudes, old ideas, old beliefs, old habits, and old relationships. Include all your notions of how things should be, all the things you're afraid of, all the things that you're angry with and that you have considered are musts. From this list, you can begin to see the things you can let go of, that you must let go of. Let go of the interpretive schemes, the filters through which you see the world that make it difficult for you to do what you want to do. Once you do this, make a list of the things that you want to do, but have been hesitant to do, such as writing the book, going to school, becoming a speaker, asking this person out on a date, or opening up your own business. The point to remember is that we all tend to interpret things in terms of some past notion, putting too much meaning, too much expectation, and too much concern on an event or other people. When we put too much meaning on something, we make it too important, a matter of life and death, which causes us to not accept things as they are, because we don't see things as they are, nor do we accept ourselves as we are. We only see ourselves as a concept we made up years ago based on interpretations We never get in touch with our fundamental capacity to be as caring and loving and courageous and compassionate as we are capable of being until we choose to become of service. We never become what we are capable of being by seeing ourselves through an old set of lenses based on judgmental and false interpretations. Once you locate your imaginary fears and see where you are stopping, you can get beyond the fears by putting them in perspective. You'll be able to put the past in the past and move forward. The fact is, the next moment in front of us has never really happened before. When you realize there is no reason to believe the next moment has to happen exactly the way it has happened in the past, other than the fact that we all bring these expectations to the next moment and cause it to happen. New possibilities open up for you. Now and the next moment is all there is. And it can be new and exciting once you let go of the past. The past does not equal the future once you get past the past. Letting go and getting past the past means being willing to let go of all that stuff. Once you complete the list from the previous exercise, see them for what they are. See them as just things without all the meaning, and then let it all go. Then begin to pursue what is important to you. The key is to be aware of where you stop. Ask yourself, when you pursue something, where do I stop? Where do you stop pursuing something you want? At what point do you hesitate and end up not doing what you said you were going to do? It is important to look at where you are stopping. By looking at where you are stopping, you can figure out what is causing you to stop. The where helps you determine your what. What is going on in your head at the time? What fears stemming from the past are coming up for you? For example, what is preventing you from connecting with other people? What prevents you from seeing something through to the end? What is causing you not to do X? You may find that you stop because of some life principle or something from your past that you have been unable to bury or let go of. Maybe something from your childhood. You may find that you are afraid to take the action because you're fearing that you're going to get hurt or criticized. Maybe that happened when you were a kid. You were criticized, you got hurt, and your inner child is hurt in this way. Identify the stopping points is a valuable piece of information. When you stop, you find what comes up that causes you to stop is a life principle which causes you to repeat the past. This causes the world to keep on looking the same way it always has. When you stop and repeat the past, you never get into that totally new realm of being that you're trying to create, which is really available for all of us at any time. Determine where you stop and why, and what life principle is holding you back. When you see where you stop and identify that life principle, you'll begin to experience true freedom. You can liberate yourself from the past. There's tremendous freedom and relief once you understand how much personal power you have. Once you grasp that you are not controlled by others or by imaginary events, but you are God, and you have the power of God, as everyone else is God. And you can do whatever you want. You can create any reality that you want, and it's all available to you. You can change and transform into whatever you want, and you have the power to change yourself. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. I am sending all the love and light to everyone listening, and I am seeing you transformed, changed, and perfect. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.